the fall and collapse of capitalism by systematically overwhelming the government systems with a flood of impossible demands. And it ends up pushing society into a crisis and an economic collapse in order to, get this, bring down America and the entire capitalist system. Yes, this is real. This is what they teach. Cloward-Piven strategy. Look it up. Now, this Cloward-Piven strategy teaches people how to overwhelm the system with massive spending, entitlements, and debt. Sound familiar? And the goal is literally...
it's like massive spending. And Biden just introduced that new bill that clearly they're not going to change the way they spend money. They're just going to tax people even more, thus making rich people leave or not do business here or try to find ways to get around it, thus leaving us with the bill. And then the migrant crisis and then crime skyrocketing. I mean, if this is happening, this is like evil to... This is like the most evil thing ever. Student loans, yeah, COVID.
To collapse the entire economy, wipe out the middle class, and bring a nation down to their knees, begging the government to save them. So what's this strategy all about exactly? Let's dig into it a little bit. Now, in the 1966 article, Cloward and Piven, that was his wife, they charged that the ruling classes, the rich, used welfare to weaken the poor, and that by providing a social safety net, that the rich were basically holding the poor people down. They were preventing them from rebelling. They said in the paper, quote, "Poor people can advance only when the rest of society is afraid of them," end quote. Cloward told the New York Times this, quote, on September 27th, 1970. Now, rather than giving the poor, government handouts, wrote Cloward and Piven, activists should work to sabotage and destroy the welfare system because, as they said in their own words, the collapse of the welfare state would ignite a political and financial crisis that would rock the nation. Poor people would rise in revolt, and only then would the rest of society accept their demands. What a strategy. Now, the key to sparking this rebellion would be to expose the inadequacy of the welfare state. Cloward-Piven's early promoters cited radical organizer Saul Alinsky as their inspiration. You might recognize that name, Saul Alinsky. He wrote a book called Rules of Radicals. It's what Obama says that he read. It's what Hillary Clinton said they read. If you read the book, it's going to explain a lot of what's going on. One of the things that he wrote in his book is something saying, quote, "Make the enemy live up to their own book of rules." So, when pressed to honor every word of every law and every statute, every moral tenet and every implicit promise of the liberal social construct, human agencies inevitably fall short. The system's failure to, quote, live up to its rule book can then be used to discredit it altogether and to replace the capitalist rule book with a socialist one. So that explains the plan. But how did they plan to implement it? Okay, well, a key component of the plan involved fooling the voters by calling yourself moderate and a uniter, even though you're a radical Marxist, and to never, ever admit what you really believe in. It involved demonizing your opponents by calling them evil, greedy, extreme, radical, and a terrorist.
And MAGA extremist, white supremacist. Like, when you start to hear these kind of strategies, and then you kind of see the chess pieces and the players and how they're moving the chess pieces, that literally freaks me out. Like, this, if this is what's happening, is it too late?
Look in the mirror and call your opponents the very things that you are. The plan teaches to always hide your true intentions, or in other words, lie or misrepresent, whatever you want to call it. Obamacare is about saving the uninsured as opposed to, income redistribution. Government regulations are to protect us from global warming as opposed to, wiping out small businesses. Amnesty for illegal immigration is about fairness as opposed to creating 12 million new Democratic voters. Now, the key to it all is to, what they say, boil the frog slowly. So by the time he realizes what's happening, he'd be cooked. The authors of this strategy, proposed a, quote, massive drive to recruit the poor onto the welfare rolls. They calculated that
that's already happening. Medicaid's already overwhelmed.
By persuading even a fraction of potential welfare recipients to demand their entitlements, it would bankrupt the entire system. The result, they predicted, would be a, quote, a profound financial and political crisis.
I don't see why not. Government has been selling fear and division for the power for generations now. Oh, 100%. Yeah, because fear, the only thing that's stronger than fear, and this is from the Hunger Games series. So write this down. You know it's a good word. The only thing stronger than fear is hope. That's it. And when you feel like it's hopeless, it's done. That's why I try not to be black-pilled as much as I possibly can. Because the minute you're black-pilled, you're just susceptible to everything. I feel like the shutdowns were peak, and now they're just not going to be shining no more. COVID lockdowns for your safety, wealth redistribution. Good Lord. The largest wealth transfer in the history of our great nation happened during that time. Corporations got stronger than ever, and mom and pop businesses slowly died, and people didn't care. You know, the people that are supposed to be for the mom and pop, my dad always talked about just a little bit more room at the kitchen table guy. They didn't care about mom and pop businesses dying. They pretend like they hate Jeff Bezos, but then they make him richer even though they raise taxes on it. It's like, hey, we're going to make you richer, Jeff, but we're going to get rid of your competition. And the only thing that is going to be bad for you is we're going to raise a little bit of taxes, but you're going to make so much more money now that there isn't any small businesses that it's not going to matter how much you pay in taxes, because you'll be so rich and the poor will be so poor you'll be able to control them still.
That would unleash.
Hey! $19.99. $19.99 from K-Bean. Thank you for educating us on this.
Thank you so much for the super chat, K-Bean. Hey, I'm not educating you. You educated me. This is what this community is all about. If you guys come up with something and I'm like, what's that? I don't have enough pride to be like, oh yeah, I know what that is. I want to know more.
Quote, powerful forces for major economic reforms at the national level. Now, this article also called for, quote, aggressive organizers, end quote, to use demonstrations to create a climate of militancy. Now, they would use carefully orchestrated media campaigns. They would float the idea of a federal program of income redistribution in the form of a guaranteed living income for all. Like a universal basic income for working and non-working people alike. Is this starting to sound familiar?
Yes.
Now, the plan's goal was to mobilize the poor people en masse to overwhelm government agencies with a flood of demands beyond the capacity of those agencies to meet. Sort of like what we're seeing in Italy. Sort of like what we're seeing at the southern border. Now, they would do this in hopes of breaking the budget, jam the bureaucratic gears into gridlock, and bring the entire system crashing down. Fear, turmoil, violence, and economic collapse would accompany such a breakdown, providing perfect conditions for fostering radical change. At least, that was the theory anyway. Now, I know that sounds bad.
This video stops.
I know it. Super chatted.
Whoa, it happens again.
99 cents.
Thank you so much,
$19.99 from KB. Thank you for educating us on this.
No, thank you. That is so creepy. I mean, it makes sense though. If you didn't know the name of that strategy or that theory or that process or whatever, you have that feeling of just crime going higher, inflation rising, and they continue to say that prices are coming down. Lie. As we just had a new inflation report saying it rose the past month. It's not at where it's expected. Then you have inner cities where the police forces are diminished. They can't recruit people anymore to even work. So who fills that vacuum but the military? Then we have the military come in. Planes are going down and struggling to fly all of a sudden. Therefore, making you stay at home. Making you afraid to leave where you live. And then the government comes in when these corporations start ultimately failing and these small businesses fail because they can't keep playing the debt game. And then the government comes in and saves the day. All the while, World War III seems more than likely starting to pop up. We just had Putin say Russia is ready for nuclear war. Israel and Palestine are continuing to go. China is always flirting with Taiwan. Sweden joining NATO. There are just too many chess pieces moving right now. Which reminds me, I don't always want to just be a doom and gloom podcaster. It's just another reminder that, hug the ones you love dearly. Keep a tight circle of people that you love nearby. make a difference in people's lives, and know that your life is bigger than what the government can do to you. Always. Always. That there is always hope, even in the darkest of night. Always hope. But hearing that strategy is so creepy to me and just depressing. And to think that the Republicans are different or they're going to make changes. They're not different. Michael Malice, I don't know if you guys know who that guy is, but he always says that like Republicans or conservatives are progressives with speed bumps. And that's ultimately what they always turn out to be. The ones that actually want to make change, try to either step away or don't actually make any changes, or they just become like Dan Crenshaw and they just get rich, or they step away because they realize it's all BS. And we're all just trying to pretend that we're doing stuff. We're making these grand gesture speeches. We're not actually changing anything. While people's lives are getting worse, our entire government is focused on TikTok. Yes, TikTok is bad and all that kind of crap. We can have that conversation. That last video we just watched was on TikTok. But is TikTok really on the forefront of your mind? I'm going to guess it's not. I'm going to guess that TikTok hasn't ruined your life as much as the politicians have. Just a thought. Comment.